I have added some texture to the face and built up my shading, completed the eyes, nose, and mouth. I'll probably come back and build up the texture more and keep refining the shading on the face. But for this demo, let's talk about clothing and hard shadows. Of course, when I shade my bunny, I will do soft shading along the paws and the legs and the feet and tail. But the clothing need a different texture than the fur. So I'm going to come over to body. I've closed my head group. I'm going to open up my body group and I'm going to come down to dress. My dress is all on one layer. So it's going to be lighter on this side, darker on this side. I'm going to come here and I'm going to create my clipping mask. And I'm going to start to draw in my hard shadows for each section of the dress. So I wish I had done the collar on a separate layer, but I didn't, so I'll have to work around that. I'm going to come to hard round pressure size, and I'm just going to turn it up. I'm going to do what's called drop shadows. So the first drop shadow I'm going to add will be from the collar. Okay, and then that drop shadow, oops, my opacity's down. I want to turn my opacity all the way up. So I knew there was something off. Check your settings before you start. So again, I'm going to start on that drop shadow. Luckily my buttons are on a different layer. So I'm going to go right under them. And I'm just thinking about like how would that collar cast a shadow. Now the shadow would continue perhaps along the edge of the body here. So I'm going to fill that in. Okay, and along the hand here. And like so. Obviously the arm here too would cast a bit of a shadow down. And the sleeve would be all in shadow. So I'm just drawing in with that brush my shadows here. Then I'm going to bring that opacity down and blend it in. Then on a new layer, create clipping mask. And I accidentally turned it blue. Don't need that color. But that is a helpful thing if you need to mark a layer. And then I'm going to just bring this down further over here. Like the shadow is heavier right there. And maybe, oops, right in here. Nope, that doesn't work. So I'm going to just try that, and then I'm going to come back down. I'm going to turn my opacity down. I could also blend it in with the brush, but I'm going to just keep it like that. Now this side too, especially right here, again, I'm going to make another clipping mask layer. So I'm only drawing on my dress. Maybe this will catch a little shadow right there. Okay, and then turning it down there. So, but making it lighter than the other areas. Okay, now say I didn't want these harsh lines. I could come in with my eraser and turn the opacity way down, and I could gently soften to blend a little bit more if I wanted to. Right, get rid of those lines. I could turn this up even more and just blend those lines in. But I like the look of the harder lines here because it kind of mimics a new style, a harder style for the clothing. Obviously, I would need to come down to buttons or up to buttons, create my clipping mask here. And my buttons need a similar shadow. So then I would come in here, turn this down, and kind of pop my buttons. And then also my collar, which is on my dress layer. Lots of clipping mask on the dress layer. Okay. again, just finding, where those shadows be. How many shadows do you need? What's the right brush size? Turn your opacity way down. And I don't love that, so I'm just going to come back in my history, and maybe for this one I'll just do that because it's getting too much. Right? And then I would do the same at the bottom of the skirt. And I should be naming all these layers, so don't forget to name them. And you could put texture on your clothing, right? So I can then put these down. Maybe I want to put a texture first to make this look like wool. So I'm going to take this brush and I'm going to turn the opacity way down. And I'm going to just put this kind of texture on. Oops, don't want to go outside the lines there. Okay, and then I can fade that texture in so it's more subtle. And then come back in with my hard brush. Ooh, too large. And the opacity is down, which is okay here. It's working, but I personally don't like to do hard shading with the opacity. I like to turn it down so that I can get more control over it. So this is going to be lighter. Really following your shading, remembering which side is it coming from. That probably wouldn't be so dark. All right, so then I'm gonna fade this. And there is some shading on my dress with texture. All right, so you're gonna experiment with different kinds of shading, soft shading, hard drop shadow shading. You need a variety of shading to create a variety of textures. You can do texture overlays like I did in the dress here. You can add texture lines like I did on the face and the fur. Detail is important. There's different texture in the hair. Okay, so it's not just about getting the shading on, it's about refining the shading, using different types of shading to create different textures for hair, fur, skin, hair, fur, nose, clothing, all different textures, layering in texture like I did on the skirt, and adding in detail.